Very much. My name is Chris. I am 67 years old. I have a senior citizens free bus pass, and I am in my first year as an apprentice as a preschool teacher. Preschool is teaching children from the ages of 2 till 5, or rather helping them learn and develop through play. And I want to encourage you people to take the sector seriously in terms of the immense information security challenges that we face and the total absence of any engagement from the information security industry in taking that issue seriously. If your child joins a preschool at the age of 2, 3 or 4, we want to know a lot about them. There's a good reason for that, because we want to help them to settle in. They're going to be upset because it might be the first time they're separated from mummy and daddy. They're going to have incidents where they're interacting with other children and they become upset. We want to know how to calm them. We want to know what they like, what they enjoy doing, how they enjoy being comforted. So we'll ask questions like, what's your favourite colour? What's your favourite toy? This goes into a form that's called All About Me, and the title of that tells you something. From the age of 2, we know all about you, everything. We know your allergies. We know your medical history. We know if there's any family problems of which we might need to be aware. We know if there's a problem with Auntie Mabel, so she shouldn't be picking you up from preschool. This is very far-reaching, sensitive data, and I'm just waiting for the day when everybody gets bombarded with individualized adverts for the purple teddy bear sweets that are gluten-free. I think that's a serious threat that we don't actually take very seriously at the moment. We know a lot more about you, though. We have your birth certificate to prove that you are, in fact, the age you claim you are. We have Mummy's birth certificate to prove that she's a British citizen and is entitled to free childcare. We have her national insurance number and her bank details so that we can funnel the childcare funding into her. There can be problems. As we move on to a computerized age, we start to collect the data about all the people who are entitled to care for the child. That is, they might pick them up, drop them off, or they might be an emergency contact. If mummy doesn't turn up, who do we call? Probably daddy, maybe Auntie Mabel again. Maybe we might phone one of the 2 neighbours who've just been agreed to be emergency contacts. We need mum's national insurance and bank details. If a computer system asks for all the carers' details, we get those details for Granny too, and Auntie Mabel, and we don't need it. That's an example of massive data overreach, which is completely unnecessary, and the fact that it happens as we're moving to computerized systems tells us that the technical people who are supporting us do not understand the issues that we face daily as preschools. We've handled these things on paper perfectly well. If someone turns up to pick up your child from preschool, we already do 3-factor authentication on them. I will eyeball them at the gate. I will check with Siobhan, our manager, that she recognises them too. If either of us have a doubt, we will demand the password, and the child will not go with them unless they can answer that question. So we're not stupid. We're all on minimum wage, including me, or a tiny bit above, but we're very experienced in looking after children. But in this new era of information security, that gets a little bit lost. We also know all kinds of personal details. I know every time your nappy was changed and whether it was dirty. You might wonder why. It's so I can protect myself, so that later on in life you're not going to accuse me of abusing your child. That data is going to be kept for 25 years, sometimes 70 years. I'm not sure how we're going to handle that with the computerized systems, because paper lasts that long, but computers don't necessarily. There are more serious issues. If we have a child protection case, that's where a child is suspected of being at risk of harm. And the word there is suspected. Then we know if daddy has been accused of having a drink problem. Accused, not having a drink problem. We know if mum was found at the station under the influence of drugs with you in her charge. We know if an estranged father has been alleged to be abusing the child. We know if there's a criminal record. All this data is incredibly sensitive, and it follows the child. It's called the Child Protection File. The Child Protection File is a singleton. There's one of them. The model is that it's on paper. If I take a Child Protection File, as I did the other week, over to another nursery, I take that paper in an envelope, I hand it to the authorised designated safeguarding lead there, that's my counterpart, and I expect her or him to sign a form that says that it has been handed over. If any of that information is duplicated, I will shred it and burn the shreds. That's a requirement. We've got 7 pieces of legislation that influence childcare in terms of our information security posture. Not just the Data Protection Act, that's trivial by comparison. We have laws that tell us what information we must share, when we must tell the parents, when we're entitled to not tell the parents, what information we must keep completely confidential. A lot of the stuff in that child protection file is not actually validated. It may consist of an anonymous tip-off from a neighbour who says they think mum is running a drugs operation from home. We don't know if that's true, but it's in that file. As that file becomes computerized, it gets sent by computer. Local authorities usually mediate that. They will insist that it be sent by encrypted email, something like egress. However, that means we've got 2 copies of the file now, the copy I had and the copy I sent to you. I should destroy the copy I have, or do I? Because maybe they're going to send it back to me modified with a new police report. We don't know. I was at a child protection conference, and they're now done by Zoom very often, which is about as, well, there's a comment on society in there that we are face-to-face dealing with child protection conferences on Zoom. The child protection file was attached as an open PDF to an email that went to 12 recipients, including our office manager. It should have gone to me as the designated safeguarding lead and nobody else, and it certainly shouldn't have been sent unencrypted. There are now 12 copies of that file out in the wild, and they have all the details of what has been alleged and what has actually happened to that child. So that's a second classification of threat. It's a very rare possibility. For example, a parent who is estranged may not be entitled to know where that child is going. That detail is in that file. If that leaks out, that parent knows that. If an allegation is made, it might affect the parent's eligibility for work because the suspicion is already out there. We're a fragmented sector. There are 35,000 providers of early years care in England. Most of them have maybe 6 or 10 staff because they're small nurseries. None of those staff are information security professionals, and they're occupied all of their time looking after children. They're not allowed to have a mobile phone or a computer in the setting because that might be used to send offensive child images to the internet. However, they are also required to keep in constant touch with mummy and daddy and to photograph the child achieving things that are part of the national curriculum. So we have contradictions in the legislation that actually affects us that we can't resolve, because when I talk to Ofsted about them, they say, oh, it seems like you've got a fair point, but I can't say. Ask the DFE. And I ask the DFE, and the DFE say, oh, sounds like you've got a fair point. Why don't you talk to Ofsted? So we're caught in this dangerous bind where people don't really know what they're talking about. If Phoebe's dad drops her off at preschool and is worried about her because she seemed a bit sad, he may send me a message. I've got to receive that message somehow. And it might say, Chris, I was worried about Phoebe. I've been thinking about her all morning. Modern dads do that, you know. They're amazing. As well as modern mums, of course. And I will send them a picture of Phoebe smiling or playing with her friends. And I'm required to do that. The degree of communication two-way between a preschool and the parents is absolutely phenomenal. It's a very rapid flow. You're probably going to get 1 or 2 messages every day about your child and messages coming back on that. There are 30,000 providers, 300,000 staff. As I say, most of us on minimum wage, none of us with any experience in information security. There are 3 million children at any time in our charge. That's every child, every single child in the country. 98% of children take advantage of early years childcare. Nowadays, we're helped a bit by platform providers that are moving into this market and providing cloud-based communications and data storage. Those providers are very useful to us because we can offload those responsibilities for information security, or we could if we really trusted them. Now, they're very good at keeping the data, but things like the data overreach are massive. All about me. What questions do I really need to know about little Johnny before he comes here? Do I really need to ask all the questions that come up by default? Is it going to default to grabbing everybody's financial details, asking for Granny's birth certificate as well as Mummy's birth certificate? those providers tend to have cybersecurity qualifications, cyber essentials, IASME. In my view, as a simple old apprentice early years practitioner, that is wildly insufficient. The degree of data we've got here on every child in the country is absolutely massive in its depth and its detail and its scope, and it needs to be treated with more respect than just ticking boxes on a form to say, yes, you don't share your password with people. The market, as I estimate it, for those platforms currently is probably about 30 million, might be 70 million, might be about twice that. It's not an insubstantial market, and the ability to reach those 7 or 8 platform providers is much easier than reaching every one of the 30,000 childcare providers. So they're the people we need to talk to. And I'm lucky that some of them are beginning to engage with it. But even then, I don't think they really understand the scope of the issue. But I don't actually care about the market, because what I actually care about is everything we ever get from the government on childcare starts with something like, every child is unique. Every child matters. Yeah, well, tell me about it. I've got 20 of them, around my feet, asking me to read a book to them or play with them in water or fill up the sandpit or something like that. I know every child is unique. I know every child matters, but so does their information. And I'm just asking you people, as much as you can, to raise that issue and take it up, because I think it's one of the most serious issues that faces the country. The youngest children here are having all of their data collected for justifiable reasons, and nobody is telling us poor minimum wage practitioners how to handle it. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, go on. I think there are 2 areas that need attention. The first, as I say, is the platform providers. Many of them are new to the market and they're beginning to take it seriously, but they don't understand. My impression, arrogantly, is that they are technically competent, and so when I, as a mere preschool practitioner, raise the issue with them, and they think, they're above me in my expertise. I would like for people to keep on pushing the issue, because I think they will be receptive, and there's unique market advantage in it. If I'm a platform provider and I can take on board the issue of the child protection file, then I've achieved something absolutely massive, and it's a unique selling point. The second thing is that local authorities and governments are absolutely abysmally crap at information security. So they give us systems that have single user access. Only one person can access it. For God's sake, I'm in a sector where most of us are part-time. So if I'm the designated safeguarding lead, I'm probably not in. The deputy designated safeguarding lead needs to be able to log on to the system, but she can't. And what I find is, the solution is what do you think? The username and password is written on the whiteboard. Why? Because the system makes us break the rules, because otherwise we can't actually function. County councils use encrypted data, encrypted email, to send child protection files back and forth. And then they allow the chairman of a child protection conference to attach it unencrypted. Why the hell didn't a dancing paperclip crop up and say, hey, looks like you're sending the most sensitive information you can possibly have about a child in an unencrypted email to 12 recipients. You might want to reconsider that. We have the technology to do it. Local authorities do not respond. They are usually abysmal. I'm from Surrey. Surrey childcare has been inadequate for 12 years. If they were a preschool, they'd be shut down. But somebody needs to take responsibility for it, and it's government and local authority that give us this culture that they tell us what we must do. They're great at that. 550 pages of guidance I've had this year alone on information security in childcare, and they still can't bloody well keep a child protection file secret. We need someone to really engage at that level. And I think also the technical solutions, they're not complex. Somebody needs to say they are. Yes, so there are lots of ways you can. I would go in at governmental level first, because they're the source of it. Okay, I do try.